It began in a village where people feared disorder almost as much as sin. Then suddenly, the children began screaming, twisting, and collapsing. And Salem started looking for an explanation. Not a distant frontier, not a great city. A tight moral community where everyone knew one another, watched one another, and judged one another. How does a people built on discipline and godly order descend into accusation, coercion, and death? How does fear become stronger than judgment? Because Salem was not just a story about superstition, it was a story about power, about what happens when moral certainty, civic authority, and communal fear all start feeding one another. To understand Salem, we have to return to the Puritan world itself. Not the caricature, the real thing. The Puritans believed liberty required moral order. A free people could not remain free, they thought, if they surrendered themselves to corruption, disorder, and hidden evil. Religion here was not private. It shaped law, status, reputation, and public life. The village stood under God together. That created real strengths, shared standards, discipline, a people who believed public life had moral meaning. But the same structure carried a danger. Religion and civic authority were closely fused. And when those powers move in the same direction, there are fewer breaks to stop them. Salem did not invent that danger. It revealed it. What happens when a morally serious people face fear without enough separation, friction, or procedural restraint to slow the spiral? The first disturbances emerged in the household of Samuel Parris, a minister already living under tension, scrutiny, and local division. The children in his home showed strange symptoms, convulsions, outcries, fits no one around them could explain. Modern observers have proposed possible medical explanations, including contaminated grain. That theory remains disputed. And even if some physical cause played a role, it does not explain what the village did next. What mattered in Salem was not only that something frightening may have been happening, it was how a morally charged community interpreted fear once it arrived. And Salem was already a place of strain. Local rivalries, property disputes, household resentments, village factions. That matters because panic does not descend on a blank slate. It spreads through tensions already waiting for a shape. Soon, suspicion turned toward witchcraft. Not because Salem was uniquely foolish, but because within its worldview, invisible evil was not absurd. It was terrifyingly plausible. That is what makes Salem tragic. Serious people trying to explain something frightening and reaching for the most dangerous explanation they had. At first, the accusations looked containable. A few names, a few suspects, a few examinations. But once accusation becomes socially powerful, it changes the system around it. People learn quickly what fear rewards and what it punishes. This is where restraint should have entered. Careful evidence, procedural friction, distance between panic and punishment. But Salem's structure lacked enough of those breaks. Its religious and civic authorities were too closely aligned. Its moral imagination was too ready to see hidden corruption. Its institutions were too local and too fused to slow themselves. So suspicion spread, not outward into wildness, but inward, deeper into the community itself. The violence of Salem was not frontier violence. It was not a mob in the open field. It was legal violence, institutional violence. Coercion clothed in order. Arrest, examination, imprisonment, condemnation. This is one reason Salem matters so much. It shows how injustice can wear the clothing of lawful procedure, while moral certainty keeps calling it righteousness. Once fear fuses with authority, innocence becomes harder to defend. Denying guilt looks suspicious. Confusion looks suspicious. Silence looks suspicious. That is how a system turns. Not because every person becomes monstrous, but because fear, group loyalty, and concentrated power stop checking one another. And Salem was vulnerable to tribalism. A small world where trust was already thin in places. A world where belonging mattered, and falling outside the moral boundary could become fatal. Some of the accused were already socially exposed. Some carried reputations, disputes, or differences that made them easier to suspect once panic began. That is why property and local grievance should not disappear from the story. Even in a religious panic, ordinary rivalries can help decide who gets dragged into the fire. So Salem was never just about theology. It was theology passing through a real community, with jealousies, ambitions, resentments, and fear already waiting underneath. Executions followed, and with them something deeper began to break. not just bodies, but confidence. At some point, the trials went too far to ignore. Too many names, too much reach, too much certainty built on too little restraint. And that is often how panic ends. Not with reason winning elegantly, but with a system finally encountering the scale of its own excess. The village had not become godless, it had become unguarded against itself. Its confidence in righteousness had outrun its capacity for judgment. This is the structural lesson beneath the tragedy. The problem was not merely that frightened people lacked self-control. The deeper problem was that Salem had too little separation between spiritual certainty, communal pressure, and legal punishment. Too much concentrated moral and civic authority in the same hands creates danger. When there are too few checks, too little friction, and too little independent judgment, panic can become policy. That is one of Salem's most enduring warnings. A community may be sincere. Its leaders may be serious. Its moral concerns may even begin in something real. And still, the system can become unjust. This is why Salem should matter beyond the village itself. It helps explain why later Americans grew more wary of fusing sacred certainty too tightly with public coercion. Not because religion no longer mattered, but because a free people would need stronger barriers against concentrated certainty, concentrated power, and concentrated fear. The Puritans had built liberty through moral order. Salem revealed the danger inside that model. A society can be morally serious and still become unjust when judgment loses restraint and power lacks enough checks. That does not erase what the Puritans built. But it does expose the cost of a structure too fused to stop itself once fear had spread. Salem is not merely a warning about superstition. It is a warning about tribal panic, procedural weakness, and public power without enough internal restraint. And that leaves the deeper question. How does a free people preserve moral seriousness without letting certainty destroy justice? For the fight for liberty never ends. It only changes hands.